The Medrash on the pasuk Shoftim v'Shoitrim says that Rab Levi gave the following mashal of a king that has lots of children, but he loves the youngest one, the smallest one, most of all. He also has an orchard that he loves more than everything else he has. And he says, I'm going to give this orchard that I love the most to the child that I love the most. In a similar way, says the Medrash, that Hashem has lots of children, so to speak, all the nations, but the Yidden are called the youngest child, the smallest child. Kinar Yisrael, the Yidden are like the little child, Voyaveyu, and therefore Hashem says, I love them. From everything that I love, that I created, says Hashem, what I love, the only thing that I love is mishpat, is justice. As the pasuk says, Ki ani Hashem oyev mishpat. So I'm going to give this idea of mishpat, justice, to the child that I love the most, to the Yidden. And that is what Shoftim and Shoitrim are all about. Now, the Rebbe asks a number of questions. Number one, the idea that you give something that you love the most to the one who you love the most is seemingly understood without a mashal. Why the need for a parable? Also, if we're already giving a parable, why the need for a parable of a king? This would be true with any person. The Rebbe also asks, how is it even possible to say that from everything Hashem created, he only loves justice? Yes, we understand justice is a very important thing, a crucial thing in creation. But to say that's all that Hashem loves? And finally, why the mashal of a little child, especially when we speak about in the nimshal, when we're speaking about the fact that Hashem is giving justice, mishpat, making judges, etc., giving that to the Yidden, you would think that's more connected to being in a state of maturity, grown up with intellect. Why a child? Says the Rebbe, the explanation of this is by first having a look at this general idea of what we mean when we say that mishpat was given over to Yidden specifically. Seemingly, the Goyim were also given the court system, the justice system. This is even one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. What is unique about the mishpat that exists by Yidden? And it is in fact this that the Medrash is coming to explain with the mashal. Because as we asked before, why the need for a parable? The Medrash gives a mashal of a paradise, of an orchard, a place where trees, fruit trees are growing. What is the difference between a paradise, an orchard, and a field? A field, you have the grain growing, the wheat from which we have bread, which is a necessity. On the other hand, fruits represent delight, pleasure, things that are not necessities, but they're very delightful. Similarly, when we speak about the concept of mishpat, judgment, generally justice, of course, as we said before, is an absolute necessity for the existence of the world. But here we're speaking about a totally different type of mishpat, more similar to the idea of the pardes, the pleasurable thing. And that's why the pasuk, the Medrash says, Ani Hashem oyev mishpat, Hashem loves mishpat. Because when we're speaking about something pleasurable, this is connected with love. And this is what was given specifically to Yidden, and specifically because they are Hashem, so to speak, a little child. How do we understand this? So when we look at the idea of Shoftim v'Shoitrim, there are judges and there are officers. One may think that the most important thing is the shoiter, the officer, who's going to make sure that the verdict is carried out practically. That's the most important thing. The mitzvah, the halacha, is carried out practically. The shofet, the judge, well, we need him to tell us what the halacha is, but it's just a technical thing. But the truth of the matter is there is another aspect of the shofet that's really a goal and an end in itself, besides just paskening, ruling what the halacha is. When we look at the Rambam, when he discusses the Beis Din Hagadol, the great court, the high court in Yerushalayim, the Rambam says the Beis Din, they are Iker Torah Shemal Peh. They are the main embodiment of Torah Shemal Peh. They are the essence of Torah Shemal Peh. In other words, the Beis Din is not only about telling us what we need to do, the practical halacha. For that, in a Goyish court system, seemingly it's a similar sort of idea. We give them what the laws are, we tell them what the laws are, what the mitzvahs, Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach are, and based on that, they're going to give the law, they're going to give the verdict. The special novelty of the Shoftim, of the Yidden, of the judges of the Yidden, is that Torah was, so to speak, given over to them so that they could now interpret Torah. They could say new innovations in Torah, and all of that becomes part of the body of Torah Shemal Peh. And this is what it means that Hashem says, from everything that I created, all I love is mishpat. What we're saying is there's all of creation, and then mishpat is really beyond creation, higher than creation. Again, if mishpat is just to clarify what the practical halacha is, how we need to act in the world, well, that would be part of creation. But when we say that they are the main embodiment of Torah Sheba'al Peh, what we're saying is they are higher than creation. There's a certain element of Torah which is not even related to only paskening the practical halacha of what we need to do. It's learning Torah for the sake of learning Torah beyond creation. And therefore the mashal is specifically of a little child. Nar Yisrael v'Yaveh, Hashem loves us like a little child. If we would be speaking just about giving the verdict, the halacha, the practical halacha, then of course we need a mature adult who knows how to paskin, etc. But here, when we're speaking about the fact that Hashem, so to speak, gave the ownership of Torah to the Yidden, this is coming because of that essential bond that Hashem has with the Yidden, and that's like a little child where we don't see any of his qualities yet. His whole quality is that he's one with his father. Now, in Avodah, practically, that's mainly revealed when we also act small in the sense of humility with bittul. And going back now to the point of why mishpat, this kind of mishpat is specifically connected to Yidden, and even more than other matters of Torah and mitzvahs, because this is really what's expressing that essential bond, how Yidden are one with Hashem, and that's why Hashem is giving them the Torah. And the mashal of here specifically of a melech, of a king who has the authority to give over the ownership over law to whoever he wants, and in this case, the melech, Hashem himself, giving it over to the Yidden. So this is the general explanation of the Medrash on this parsha, but the Rebbe is now going to apply it to all of Torah and mitzvahs. This idea that we say that the Shoftim, the judges, is a goal in itself, using your seichel, learning, is a goal in itself in learning Torah and connecting with Hashem, not only about the practical. So the Rebbe says we know generally there's the idea of Naaseh v'Nishma. And in a certain sense, Naaseh v'Nishma is similar to the idea, Naaseh, more like the Shoftim, like the officers, getting you to do what you have to do, Naaseh. This is more the Kabbalah's oil aspect, just have to get to do what you have to do. The Shoftim, on the other hand, is more the idea of the understanding of Torah, the learning, the understanding, the reasoning, the kavanah of the mitzvahs, etc., etc. Now, like we said by the Shoftim and Shotrim, you could think that maybe the Shotrim, the officer, is the most important thing, just getting the act done. And learning, the Shoftim, is again just a means to know what you have to do. But we just said from our Medrash that there's a special chavivus, a special love that the Eibishter gives the concept of mishpatim, the concept of learning Torah, understanding Torah, to the Yidden. In other words, that's a goal in itself. And that's what we're about to discuss over here. But first, says the Rebbe, this will also give us also another explanation in the general idea of what we say that the Yidden said Naaseh before Nishma. Usually we say Naaseh before Nishma is because that's the ultimate of Kabbalah soil, the ultimate of just accepting what Hashem says without even knowing the reasons, without even knowing what we're going to be told. If we would first understand, then the Kabbalah soil isn't perfect. So that's the simple, regular explanation of Naaseh before Nishma. But the Rebbe says there's another point. Based on what we just said, that Shoftim, the learning, the understanding is a goal in itself, there's another idea over here. When we learn, well, practically we need to learn first before we can know what to do. But if you did the mitzvah already, you've done the mitzvah, Naaseh, you've done the mitzvah, what else is there to learn afterwards? So this is the other pshat of Naaseh before Nishma. We did already, and now we're recognizing there's a goal in Nishma for itself. Let's learn. Because the ultimate pleasure of Hashem is when we also have a certain understanding and appreciation for Torah and mitzvahs. Why is that? Because we know that Nisava HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael Dira B'Tachtonim, Hashem had a desire to have a dira, a dwelling place down here in the lowest world. But Tachtonim means in every aspect of the world, and in the person that means in every aspect of the person, every faculty of the person. If we are just serving Hashem just with the Kabbalah soil, so yes, we have that bittul, that nullification to Hashem. We gave over our rotzon, a desire to Hashem, our will to Hashem, but it didn't penetrate our intellect. And this is the idea of Nishma as a goal in itself. In other words, not only for the practical, but I'm also having the Torah, mitzvahs, Hashem, entered my brain, entered my intellect as well. So this is generally Torah versus mitzvahs. The same thing says the Rebbe, more taking it a little bit more further down, more in detail. We also have this within each mitzvah itself. There's two general kavanos in mitzvahs. There's one thing that we're just doing the mitzvah, but Kabbalah soil, because that's what Hashem said, and it's expressed in the bracha that we make on every mitzvah equally. Hashem kedishanu b'mitzvahs, Hashem sanctified us with the mitzvahs and commanded us. This is equal in every single mitzvah. But then there is a special kavanah, what each mitzvah is specifically achieving in us. And in a certain sense, Chassidus explains there's something greater about this individual kavanah more than the general Kabbalah soil. the Ratzon that Hashem has in all mitzvahs equally, that's an expression of Hashem's Ratzon. But there's something deeper than Ratzon. There's something called Tainug, delight. And that's specifically expressed in the individuality and the differences between each mitzvah. Hashem is having a special, different kind of delight in each and every mitzvah. And therefore, says the Rebbe, when we use that kavanah, that seichel, we learn, like the Shoftim idea, to understand the special kavanah of each mitzvah, the difference of each mitzvah. Now we're having this tainug of Hashem, this greater level, to shine into us, and therefore, once again, it brings out something even greater than just the fulfillment of the mitzvah itself. Now, this is true regarding all mitzvahs. Again, we have these two aspects, but again, in a very general way, this is mainly expressed in that which we call mishpat, in the general way, the idea that Hashem gave over Torah to Yidden, Torah Shemal Peh, that the Yidden are, so to speak, the owners over the Torah, and that's why this specifically expressed that special bond between Hashem and the Yidden, and the special pleasure that Hashem has in this specifically. The Rebbe connects this now also with Chodesh Elul, because we always read Parsha Shoftim in the beginning of Chodesh Elul. In Chodesh Elul, we have the meaning of blowing shofar. Now, in shofar, we have two seemingly opposite ideas. On the one hand, we say, the Mendel says shofar is the word shapru ma'asechem, beautify your ways, connected with pleasure and delight. On the other hand, we know the shofar instills fear and awe. How do these two things go together? The Tzemach Tzedek explains that the shofar really represents the source of all delight, the source of all pleasure, which is really even beyond being able to be manifest and be able to be revealed. And that's why we don't feel the pleasure in the shofar so much. On the contrary, what we feel more is a sense of fear and bittul. On the other hand, says the Rebbe, this is really the source of all delight and all pleasure. Again, similar to the idea of mishpat. On the one hand, mishpat is justice, but this is something specifically that Hashem loves and He gives specifically to the Yidden because of the love that the Eibishter has to the Yidden. And the Rebbe concludes, as the Medrash does, that through mishpat we are zoiche immediately to the Geula.